Hey everyone, welcome back to another CollectA review. Today we're taking a look at the 2017 Deluxe Dimorphodon. I recently got this figure in off Amazon. I saw it on sale the other day for $19.99, which is a heck of a deal because I've seen this figure retail normally between $30 and $40. And I have to say, I am so impressed with this figure. I'm almost mad at myself that I didn't get this when it first came out. I always liked the look of this figure, but when I got in the other day, and from the second I took it out of its shipping box, I've been so impressed by this. This is such a beautiful, beautiful figure from CollectA, and I love the size of it. This thing is huge. I was blown away by how big it was. I knew it was a good size figure, but I was not prepared for how big it was when I finally got it in hand. Dimorphodon is a extinct flying reptile. It is not a dinosaur. It is a type of pterosaur, and it's actually been known for quite a long time. The first remains were discovered by the famous Mary Anning in 1828, and it was finally named correctly by Richard Owen in 1858. Dimorphodon is a very popular species among dinosaur toy companies. Almost every company has their own version of Dimorphodon. But I have to say this CollectA one is definitely my favorite version of Dimorphodon. I just love the sheer size of this figure. So since we're talking about size, let's do a couple quick measurements. This figure is 15 inches long from the tip of the tail to the tip of that gigantic head, and just about 5 3/4 inches tall to the top of that wingtip right here. So Dimorphodon was not a big pterosaur. It was about 3.3 feet long. It had a 4.6 foot long wingspan. So that put this figure in the 1-2 scale range, which means this figure is half the size of what an actual size Dimorphodon would be. So let's talk about the pose on this figure. This Dimorphodon is sculpted walking on all fours, which is how it probably spent most of its time. Dimorphodon had very small wings proportionate to its body size, so some paleontologists think that this was a pretty poor flyer, that it may have just, climbed trees and glided here and there, kind of like a very mean-looking flying squirrel. And I absolutely love pterosaur figures that are sculpted on all fours. It's so much easier to display them. It looks more natural to me. It looks much better than, the open wing approach that, we've been seeing companies doing for years. They're kind of a pain to display unless you want to, hang some string from your ceiling or make it a custom display base, which I'm too lazy to do. But it is nice to see a lot of companies over the last couple of years have been sculpting their pterosaurs in this quadrupedal position. I absolutely love the color scheme on this figure. It is primarily a dark yellow with all these brown blotches and spots all the way down his body. The main body has these leopard spots, and then going down to the tail has all this brown striping. You have a brown wash going over that yellow to highlight those primitive looking fur-like feathers, or if you want to be technical about it, those are called pycnofibres. And if you're also familiar with paleo art, this color scheme may look very familiar to you. The wing membranes are done in a light gray coloration. The claws are painted in black. And speaking of black, look at that big, soulless black eye on this figure. CollectA does paint the eyes on a lot of their figures just in straight black. You don't really see a lot of pupils on them, but I have to say I really like the all black look on this Dimorphodon. It's a glossy coat on it, so you get that nice reflection of light in it to give it that like wet, lifelike look. So I definitely do dig the black eye on this Dimorphodon. So let's zoom in and take a look at some of the finer details on this figure. Look at the size of this head right here. The head on this figure is absolutely huge, which is a characteristic of Dimorphodon. You can see the nostrils are sculpted in right there, that big black glossy soulless eye. You got some nice detail around the eye. You got those pycnofibres coming in just at the base of the head, and you got the teeth are nicely painted in an off-white color. It does have the correct number of teeth in the front of the mouth. The tooth count on this animal is kind of off, especially with the top jaw. The back of the jaw has not been discovered, and now this figure does have an articulated jaw. I have always kind of been critical of how CollectA does their articulated jaws. I think they're okay. Most of the time I feel like it takes away from the sculpt because it just really not as refined as, say, like Papo's jaw articulation, but I have to say on this Dimorphodon, this is probably the best articulated jaw I've seen executed on a CollectA figure. The jaw closes pretty much flush, and it doesn't open that wide. This is the farthest it does open. I tried opening it a little further, and what I ended up doing was popping the gums of the socket right there, but thankfully they easily pop back in. You can see the tongue and inside the mouth are painted a matte pink color. I would like a gloss coat in there to kind of give it that wet look, but that is just a very, very minor gripe. And moving down to the rest of the body, you can see how all those very primitive looking for like structures are sculpted on here. I always like the way CollectA, sculpts their feather-like structures on their figures. It always looks nice to me. You can see that dark yellow coloration with that brown wash to bring out all that nice detail. Going down to the wings right here, you can see the wings have lines sculpted into them to give that look that the wing membrane is all folded up nice and tight. When animal would extend its wings, this would be stretched out for a flying surface. Now, the only thing I notice is right here at the top of the membrane, I got a little bit of sloppy paint from where they painted the body. It is bleeding onto the gray paint. It's really not that big deal to me. Same thing on the other side right here. I mean, these are hand-painted figures, so that is to be expected. Going down to the hands, you can see the hand claws are beautifully sculpted, and the claws are painted in black. Turn the figure over, you can see it has a off-white belly coloration, and then going down to the back legs, you can see that very long fifth toe actually has the membrane sculpted into it. You can see it going right to the ankle and then extending all the way up to the base of the tail. This is just such a beautiful model to have in here. I absolutely love this thing. And then going down to the tail, you can see it goes from that spotted pattern on its back to striping along the tail, and you get down to this rudder right here, which is truly speculative. Dimorphodon has not been discovered with a rudder impression. This is based off Rhamphorhynchus, but all in all, just a absolutely astounding looking figure from CollectA. Like I said, I'm just so mad at myself. I did not pick this up in 2017 when it first came up. I'm so happy I have it in hand right now. All right, let's move on with some comparisons. Here is a Dimorphodon figure from Papo, and Dimorphodon is obviously based on the Jurassic World design. Fun little fact, I actually wrote the review for this Papo Dimorphodon on the Dinosaur Toy blog. I really wasn't overly impressed with this figure. I definitely love the aesthetics of this CollectA one. You can even see the difference in the skull shape on the CollectA one versus this Jurassic World style Dimorphodon. And over here we have another Papo pterosaur there, Tapajera. You can see this Dimorphodon absolutely towers over that poor Tapajera. And here is another pterosaur. This is the fantastic looking Papo Quetzalcoatlus. And here is another fantastic pterosaur figure, the very underrated 2018 Safari LTD Pteranodon. And here's a couple comparisons with some of CollectA's other figures. Here it is with their fantastic 2019 Carnotaurus. You can see this Dimorphodon absolutely dwarfs this figure. And on a side note, this Carnotaurus is definitely one of my favorite figures ever to come out from CollectA. And here it is with their feathered T-Rex, which is a very large figure from them. And this Dimorphodon is not as heavy as this CollectA feathered T-Rex, but is definitely a little bit longer. And just one more size comparison just to really hammer home the point of how big this figure is. Here it is with the Papo Spinosaurus, and these two figures are roughly about the same size. Let me focus in on that spino head. So yeah, definitely very impressed with the size of this Dimorphodon. So, final thoughts on this figure. If you haven't figured it out by now, I absolutely love this CollectA Deluxe Dimorphodon. I love the size of it. The sculpted and detail are fantastic. I'm really impressed by the articulated jaw on it. It's just such a cool looking figure. And like I said, I just can't get over the size of this thing. I think it just looks fantastic. And CollectA has a couple other large scale pterosaurs, and I am definitely going to pick those up now because I am so impressed buy their Dimorphodon. And like I said at the beginning of the video, I ended up getting this figure on sale on Amazon for $19.99. I'll leave the link in the description if you want to get that figure for this price. I don't know how long they're going to keep it at that price for, but I'll also leave a link to D. Jenkins. They are probably one of the easiest places in the US to get CollectA figures from. And I'll also leave the link to Everything Dinosaur for those of you outside the country. So that will do it for the review. I have the rest of the new 2020 Safari figures coming in. Hopefully I should have them by the middle of next week. That's the Concavinated Dilophosaurus and the Quinzawasaurus. I probably still pronouncing that wrong. So be on the lookout for those reviews once I get those in hand. And as always, if you're enjoying the content on this channel, show your support by hitting that subscription button just below the video. Each subscription helps out the channel tremendously and it's greatly appreciated. And I'll see you for the next one.